You know, I really enjoy Irish pork. It's so versatile, quick to cook, and absolutely delicious, and so versatile for me as a chef, but also at home. I'm going to show you a lovely stroganoff using some pork fillet, which I'm going to talk about. You could use some pork chops, and I'm going to put some lovely Irish cider into it, a little bit of mustard and some apple. Serve it with some pasta, but you could serve it with some rice or some mashed potato. So when you're getting the pork fillet, so this is what the pork fillet looks like, and all I've done is just literally trimmed it and cut it into small little medallions. That's a full pork fillet, so you can see how lean it is. It's absolutely delicious. And when you're getting, you know, your lovely Irish pork, always look for the Board B quality mark here. So this is it here. So you could do this recipe with the lovely pork chops, would work really well. And then I'm going to do another video now very shortly in the next week or two using some lovely Irish pork mince. So that's the quality mark you're looking for. And it's really, really versatile. Pork mince, like if you're making like the likes of a ragu or even a burger, anything like that, it's really, really so tasty. So it is. Right, first thing we need to do is we're going to preheat the pan, which I've done, and we're just going to toss our pork fillet. So I've cut them into what we call little medallions. I'm going to toss them into some plain flour. We're going to put some smoked paprika into this. So this is a lovely, lovely spice and works really well with the pork. And that's the one thing about pork, it can take on so many different flavors and ingredients. So smoked paprika is really delicious. Now, good pinch of salt. And then we're going to mix that all together. Now, just before I do that, we're going to heat the pan, which I've already done, and we're going to put in some rapeseed oil. So the saucepan of water is for the pasta. So I'm going to pop that in. So I am now, and I'm using a pappardelle pasta. So it works really well, this, with some mashed potato or rice. So it's a lovely, lovely, it's a dried pasta. Salt into the water. A couple of good pinches of salt. No need to add oil or anything like that. And this is a recipe for the stroganoff that you can make ahead, which is fantastic. Now, so just let that just bubble away there, and that'll probably take about 8 minutes or thereabouts. Okay, good hot pan. And then we get our pork fillet. Now you can, I'm doing like a wide dish so you can see this, but you can put all these ingredients into like a zip bag, you know, the ones that you can close. Put in your flour, put in your salt, and also your spices. I'm using the smoked paprika, and then you can toss it. So what I'm doing is going to shake that off, mix it all through. So just mix that all through, and then just literally give that a nice little. So this is going to help kind of thicken it. So as we do each piece, then it's going to go onto the pan. So we'll try and work this nice and quickly here. So shake off any excess flour. Now I will put in some butter into this also. You know me and the butter. And just give that a nice little toss. Now, so this is one pork fillet I'm using. And we just want to get a nice little bit of colour just onto this. And we're going to cook it in the sauce, so we will. And because I've cut it so thinly, it's going to cook really, really quickly. So I've trimmed off any excess fat on the outside. And then we just literally just toss it in that flour. Now you've had kind of raw meat in the flour, so you can either discard or you can freeze it. You can use it again, but as long as you know that you've had raw meat in it. So kind of spread this out as I've done here. A nice kind of a wide pan. And then we're going to get a nice little bit of colour onto this. So turn up the pan now. So you don't have to throw them on top of one another. Just keep literally using that. You can use your hands, of course you can. And then just toss it in there. Yeah. Lovely. So that's one full pork fillet, and it can also be known as pork steak or tenderloin, and it's a really, really tender, beautiful cut. So spread that out there. So now you got a wee shot of that, and I'm going to get my butter. So I have my butter in here. Yeah, lovely. There we go. Super. So a little bit of butter in there, a couple of wee cubes of butter. We'll just stir our pasta. Now just while that's on kind of cooking, so the rapeseed oil will stop the butter from burning, and the butter will give the most delicious flavour. So what I'm going to do next, we're going to prepare our ingredients for the actual sauce. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to use some lovely chestnut mushrooms, and these are grown in Ireland. We're going to use some garlic, a couple of cloves of garlic, and some red onion. You can use regular onion, or you can use a nice sweet shallot. So with the mushrooms, we're just going to literally wipe them. That's what I've done. And we're going to slice them nice and thin. Now these are the chestnut mushrooms. So slice them like that. So cut them in half, or you can quarter them, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to slice them nice and thin like that. So we'll do about 3 of these. So just curving them, just remove the top of the stalk, just give them a little wipe. So that's them done. Now, before I do my onion and my garlic, we're just going to flip over. So you can see the way the butter is melting. Nice little bit of colour. And the smoked paprika will give you that. That's the beautiful thing about that. Gorgeous. So keep the pan nice and high. Now, so just sealing it in, getting a nice bit of colour, and then flip it over, and the butter gives that delicious flavour. So even like this, like I've done here, a couple of sliced apple, it's absolutely delicious. Now, so next we're going to do our onion. We're going to slice that. So just watch the fingers when you're doing this. So that's 1/2 a red onion. And then the other half. The red onion are nice and sweet, they'll add lovely colour to the dish, and they'll work really well in the sauce. A couple of cloves of garlic. And you could use ginger in this. I wouldn't probably use it in the stroganoff, but it does work really well with pork. Now, just crush this, and then this is going to go on top of your mushrooms and your red onion. And the same for this here. So I'll just turn down my pasta. I'm going to take out my pork, even though it's not fully cooked, but I want to just start the sauce, and then we'll put the pork back in. Lovely. So just using a clean plate, just lift out the pork, and because it's so thinly cut, you can see that there, you get a nice little bit of colour there, and actually the flour in the pork will help thicken up the sauce when we go to doing that now. So it's still raw in the centre, but it will cook through. It doesn't take long to cook. So I'm using the same pan for my sauce ingredients. Lovely. Okay, just let that sit, give the pasta a little stir. It's cooking up lovely. All I have is salt in that. So keeping the pan nice and hot, bring in all your lovely ingredients. So that's your lovely garlic, your mushrooms, your onions, all that's going to go into the pan. And we're going to give it a little stir, and we're just going to let this just cook for a minute. So just combining everything. So you can see there's lovely colour in that. Now you could put in some fresh thyme in here, you could put in a little bit of sage. I'm actually going to finish this with some lovely parsley. Now I am going to use some nice cider, and I'm using a nice Irish cider. So this is one we use in the restaurant Stonewell. So it's not too dry and it's not too sweet. Some mustard, and I'm using some Dijon mustard. You could use whole grain mustard. There's so many recipes for a pork stroganoff, so there is. Now just let that just cook away. I'm not looking for too much colour, I'm just looking to combine everything together. So you can see the way it's mopped up all those lovely juices. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deglaze it. So just means pouring on the liquid, and this is the cider I'm using. Stir that through. We're going to add in a couple of spoonfuls of mustard. So when you're cooking with cider or any alcohol, you could use white wine. When you cook it, for quite a few minutes, it cooks out the alcohol. So 2 teaspoonfuls of that lovely Dijon mustard. Just let that cook out. And then every so often, just have a little look at the pasta. So you want to cook it until it's al dente. Now you could serve this with rice or mashed potato, it doesn't really matter. Our pork is resting, but it needs to go back in because it needs to finish off cooking away. And then we're going to put in our sour cream. You could use some regular cream if you wanted in this. So I'm using a full tub of sour cream in here. So scrape that all in. So that makes it lovely and kind of fresh. And with the apples and with the cider, it's really full of flavour, so it is. Just bring my apple there, and then our parsley. So stir this through. You could use some regular cream in this. And just let that just come back to the boil, just stirring it all through there. It's a great sauce because you can make it ahead, and that's the beautiful thing about the pork. It cooks really quickly, and this nice stroganoff can be made ahead. Now just to loosen it up, this is optional, but just a little bit of chicken stock, just about 100 mils goes in there, and then in goes the pork. So that's 1 pork fillet. We've trimmed it, we've sliced into little medallions, and that's our lovely Borbia quality assured Irish pork. Now to kind of spread that out a little bit, as you can see what I've done. You can see the mushrooms in there, you can see all of that. Now we're going to prepare our apple. So the pasta's on cooking. You cook the pasta until it's al dente, which means that there's a little bit of a bite to it. So for the nice apple, I'll just use half the apple here. We're just going to cut it, and we're going to literally peel it. And we're going to cut it into nice little kind of slices and just remove the core. Now, and the same for this. So one ingredient that works really well with pork is cider, apples, all those kind of things. It's so simple and so delicious with it. Now I have some lovely fresh basil, you could actually put that in, or some fresh thyme. And another herb that works really well with, you know, any cut of pork is sage. Sage and pork is really good. So we'll just slice this nice and thinly, just into kind of like little kind of chunks like that. And then cut them in half, and that's that. Lovely. And that's going to go in. We're going to stir that through. I don't want a really heavy stroganoff. You can see the way it's coating that lovely pork. And then we just finish it with some lovely fresh herbs. So some parsley. I'm using curly parsley. You can use some flat leaf if you want it. Just watch the fingers when you're doing this. And always with fresh herbs, I like to add them at the last minute if it's a soft herb like this. Basil would work really well too. So chop it nice and fine. So you can see the way that's simmering away, reducing away beautifully. And sprinkle that all over. Thanks a million, Melon. Now, and that's it. It's as easy as that. So just let that cook for another minute or two. Finish it with a little bit of black pepper, because we already have seasoned the flour, so I don't want it too salty. And then we're going to strain our pasta. Now I like, when I do pasta, is just putting a little bit of butter into it, keeping a little bit of the water, and then just a cube or two of butter, and then just mix this through. So this is the pappardelle pasta that we're using for this. Lovely. Now, so let's have a little taste. So remember, with the flour and the pork, it'll help thicken it up, and I'll just show you the consistency of the sauce. So it's not too runny and it's not too thick. It's good, it's fresh, it's not in any way heavy or creamy. I think it needs a little bit more salt. So remember, taste to your own taste buds. That's lovely. And there we go. You can see the nice little chunks of apple, the sliced red onion, the lovely fresh herbs. We're good to go. We have our pasta done. I'm just going to serve it in a bowl. Make it nice and simple. And again, you can do this, serve this with rice, or you can serve this with some lovely mashed potato or even a baked potato. But I do like it with some pasta. And the pappardelle pasta is delicious with this. Now, so plenty of that. And then just using a nice big spoon, we'll get all our lovely pork fillets. You can see the lovely medallions of pork because we sliced them so thinly. And you have that lovely red onion. Those really, really tasty, you know, mushrooms. And I'm using the chestnut mushrooms in this. There we go. Lots of that lovely, beautiful. Now, and there we go. So that's a very, very simple recipe. That is my beautiful pork stroganoff using the very best of Irish pork. I'm using the pork fillet, and remember to look for that logo when you're getting your lovely pork there. That Borbia quality mark there, that's what you're looking for. So we're supporting Irish pork producers, Irish farmers. Serve it with pasta, rice and mashed potatoes. I hope you try this very quick and delicious recipe.